Hey, Giggles, knock it off.
Don't look directly at me, Lance.
You want more? You need more donuts?
No.
Shut up and sit down.
Back in the day when I was a top cyclist, I took performance-enhancing drugs.
It's time to ride, my body's strong. I'm on the bike, spinning along. I've got to ride like the wind, to be fast again.
You are listening to the Dialed Podcast with Matt Legrand, Evan Price, Lance Hepler, and Jake Von Turing. Integrity is not a conditional word. It doesn't flow in the wind or change with the weather. It is your inner image of yourself. And if you look in there and see a man who won't cheat, then you know he never will.
Ride like the wind. I was born the son of an honest man.
U.S. Postal Service's pro cycling team, including Lance Armstrong, ran the most sophisticated and successful drug program that we've ever seen.
And I've got such a long way to go. Make it to the corner of Wiggins Road, so I ride like the wind, ride like the wind.
Performance-enhancing drugs. Stay away from them.
Hi, and welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I am Jake Von During, and I am here with Lance Hepler.
Lance Romance in the studio. I can't even say my own tagline without losing it.
That was
terrible,
I mean,
man. Sorry.
that like needed 5 minutes for him to gather himself before he was even able to produce that.
I'm running on fumes here, guys.
Oh, geez. Matt Legrand.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? You guys look lovely, except for Lance here. Looking across from him.
Feeling rough.
He looks like he drove through the night.
I did drive through the night.
Everyone else looks absolutely stunning.
Yep. And last but not least,
You don't even get to say your name.
I know. This is a much better intro than anything I come up with. So there you go. That's
Evan
it. Yep.
Price.
Evan Price.
There we go. Yep. That was my intro. That counts. Except
What's up, Speedos?
I can like smell Lance from over here.
Yeah, I'm a little ripe too.
I wasn't noticing it earlier. I'm starting to notice it now.
Oh boy.
Hey, you know what? Now that you mention it.
I know. Like as I'm starting to breathe deeper.
It's me.
I don't
I'm
smell
sorry,
it.
guys.
I don't smell it yet.
Okay, just wait for it.
I drove like 16
I
hours
know,
to
I
get
don't
here,
blame you.
and here I am sitting at the table for you guys.
It was worth
Except
And all
for
we're
the
doing is
stink.
making fun of you.
And all you're doing is making fun of me.
That's too good. Let's backpedal, Lance. Backpedal for us.
Okay.
Where the heck you been, man?
I did go to Vegas this last week.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Did you put some whatever it is down for the football.
No, I just met with my college buddies and we did our fantasy football draft.
Fantasy football
That's
draft.
what we went down there for. So
Was it fun?
I had a great time.
Who was your number one pick?
It was a lot of fun. I ended up with Kamara, I think, is my number one pick. So he's a running back.
Who? I was about to say. I thought I knew the NFL do something well.
Okay, so do you still have to have what are the consequences for losing?
It's the same thing. The loser of the group gets their legs waxed.
So it's still legs waxed.
It's still legs waxed.
So you need to grow your leg hair out.
So the month of January, I will have to grow my leg hair out.
Okay,
Just
that's
so
fair.
boy.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
I'm okay with that.
We'll all be growing our leg hair
I
out that time.
voted for head waxing, but
No, it was chest waxing.
chest waxing.
It's
Is that
not
what it was?
happening either.
Okay.
No. Sorry. Yeah. So I went to Vegas. I actually, before I left, I did race down at PIR in the 3-4 field. We had a race down there, and unfortunately, I crashed. I bounced off the pavement in the race.
Pavement or dirt?
It was pavement.
Oh man.
Yeah. It was a 15-lap race, 2 miles per lap. It was like lap 7, I think, 7 or 8, and I was about mid-pack. I was coming into a corner and had quite a bit of momentum, and I didn't want to hit the brakes and kill my momentum. I wanted to move up a few places, and I squoze myself into a space that I did not fit. And so it was right in between another cyclist, Dave Petermeyer. Sorry, it is mostly my fault that we went down, and the edge of the course.
Everyone's okay?
Yeah, everyone's okay.
Okay.
What ended up happening, I got too close to him. He didn't hit me, but the guy outside of him bumped into him, and then he hit my rear wheel, and I just tumbled. And so, yeah, me and Dave both went down. Dave and I have raced a lot together. I ripped all the skin off my knee again. And but we weren't really injured. We both popped up and fixed our handlebars and
No holes in the kit.
no holes in the kit.
How that happened, I don't know. Your bike went mostly unscathed, just a couple little scuffs.
I should show you the bruise on my ass or my butt. I have a sorry about that, Jake. I have a giant like saucer-sized bruise on my butt because I hit the pavement and I didn't realize. Yeah. Anyway. So what happened, I went down, and we kind of gathered ourselves, realized we weren't hurt, and we both just like jumped up and started soft pedaling.
Yeah.
The group caught us, and we both just jumped back in with the group because it was a 15-lap race, and I figured, okay, we'll just jump back in. And then I ended up racing really well.
The adrenaline's pumping by that point because you're losing all your blood, too.
I took like second in a hot lap and then took fourth in the final sprint. So and then after the race, I realized I just asked, "Hey, do my results still count?" Because, I did well in the hot lap, and so I would have taken like fourth overall. And they're like, "Oh, if you were a lap down, no, none of those."
I bet you if you didn't say something that they would not have known the difference.
They didn't know. When
No.
I went in, they're like, "What? You were a lap down?" I'm like, "Gosh, dang it."
Well, here's the thing, too, because I was out there volunteering and helping out with the chip timing thing that we were running. And I saw you go by, and I saw the group coming up way down the stretch. I'm like, holy crap, Lance, how did he get that big old, off the front? But he looks like he's soft pedaling.
I was soft pedaling sitting up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, if they're that far off the front, why are they soft pedaling? He's like pointing at something. I'm like, what? I don't know. I couldn't make heads or tails of what was going on. Then afterwards, obviously, it all came around to find out what happened. But
How was the chip timing stuff?
The chip timing seemed like it worked good. Did it? Do you have any idea?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, I think they captured some data, but they couldn't make it work with the high-speed photography camera that we currently have, and that was one of the issues that we wanted to make sure that worked. The fast links or whatever it's called
just couldn't sync up.
It wasn't syncing, wasn't working, and they're still kind of working on some of this stuff. And that company really wants to make it work, and that was the reason why they came out, just to see if it was going to work. But it was also for us to kind of get an idea of how the software would work with the camera. So it's still, we'll call it a work in progress.
Got it.
And we still have another company yet to come out. This particular company that was out there, though, was called MyLapse, and they use an active chip. So that chip is actively communicating. It's just not a passive chip that goes through and it's like ticks off the sensors. So it's gathering data as it's going. So we were just curious how that was going to work. So we're still working on it. We'll just call it that.
The passive chips make more sense because they're cheap and people will lose them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But they're not as accurate.
Yeah.
Supposedly. So
well,
I'm learning more and more about chips. So
yeah. So anyway, I confessed to the officials that I was a lap down. Unfortunately, I threw Dave under the bus as well. They didn't realize that both of us were a lap down, so we got relegated to the back of the field, which was
perfect,
fair, because we were a lap down. Although I was missing skin, they just didn't realize it. Anyway. Mm-hmm. The rest of the week, I jumped in my van and headed towards Vegas. It's like a 16-hour drive from here, so I stopped and rode in a few places and had a couple of great rides down in Vegas. Some mountain biking. There's a couple of guys I have ended up hooking up with down there with through Strava.
Yeah.
That every time I'm in town, I just say, hey, what are you guys doing tomorrow? They're like, oh, we're doing a 25-mile mountain bike. Show up at this time with this. I'm like, okay, so
that's nice to have.
Yeah. So,
and you think they're cool people? They should listen to the podcast.
Yeah, they are. I think they do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. It's good to have people in Vegas.
Yes. So we have some people in Vegas, and then I was going to take my time coming back, but I didn't. I bombed back to make it here in time for this. I did stop yesterday in Lake Tahoe and rode the Tahoe Flume Trail again because
that's like one of your favorites.
Your pictures from that.
It's just beautiful, and it was a good stop for me, and so I had a good time. So
nice.
So that's it.
Cool.
That's me.
Evan,
Mine's pretty quick. I did Saturday. I rode with Scott Goodrich again.
Oh, how was that?
I love it.
100 miles?
Yeah. He went 128.
Yeah, something crazy.
He needed 7 hours. I needed 6 hours.
Okay.
So I went 6 hours. He went 7.
I saw that he went 120 something, and I was like, good on you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool. He's strong right now on the bike.
You're not posting to Strava anymore.
Okay, so my
Yep.
Garmin has decided.
Wait. We have like an excuses for. Okay.
I was so on it for a while. Like I was
You did.
figuring it out.
You
yeah.
had, well, I don't know about figuring it out, but
Okay. Well, yeah. I was.
But you
I
were
was,
posting stuff.
I was like figuring it out in terms of like pre-algebra to algebra to calculus.
Okay.
We'll say it. I was in the pre-algebra phase, and it was like all of a sudden I go to Boulder and it disconnects for whatever reason, and I have not been able to reconnect.
Automatic syncing thing, or
No, I'm using all the technical language correctly. I think
Okay.
it's disconnected and it needs to not be anymore.
Garmin, that is complicated sometimes with
is.
their edge devices.
Yeah.
Quite
I was
often
really
you have to.
I
you
was
have
like
to,
repairing it, and it's not repairing
Yeah,
for
you
some
have
reason.
you have to shut your phone off
That's
all the
a
way.
horrible bug.
Yes, and then-
Seriously?
yeah. If you turn off the Garmin, if you cancel out the Garmin Connect app,
Yeah.
and turn off your phone entirely, when you turn your phone back on, open up that app again, turn on your Edge device,
It'll repair
it will
everything.
repair.
Got it. Okay.
But you never
we're
think
gonna try
that you have to
tonight.
turn off your phone completely, but
That's the ticket.
That's the ticket.
Okay.
So that would, especially with the
This is
watch,
why I have
I've
to ask
noticed
you
that.
guys.
I've noticed that, especially with the watch, that
Yeah, because
turning off
even
the phone,
the
is
watch
what fixes.
unpaired too, which
Yep.
was yeah.
But the other thing to do with your 820, I think is what
Yep,
you have,
820.
would be to connect it to your Wi-Fi so that it doesn't have to sync
Okay.
through your phone, and that should be another option.
Because that was the weird thing is on the watch I was going, I'll just like unpair or I'll just turn off and turn back on the Bluetooth, and the Bluetooth wasn't even coming up as an option.
And I think
So-
Garmin is saying that this is an Apple bug, and they can't do anything about it, and that's kind of what it looks like. But I can't imagine. It doesn't sound right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I believe them that that's the case, but
Yeah.
from a technical standpoint, it doesn't sound right.
All right. Well,
I have to do that about once every 2 weeks.
really.
Oh, I
Yeah.
just probably do it. It's when it's like
See, I was good for like a month,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
I'm back to manual posting, which according to everybody,
don't count.
I'm just like pretend working out at this point. I haven't trained in however long,
yeah,
but
you haven't posted to Strava. It doesn't exist.
no. Well, I manually post to Strava, but I know nobody takes that seriously.
No.
Nobody
No.
takes it seriously.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Then Sunday I went to White Salmon and whitewater rafted for my buddy's birthday.
Oh, that's
Fun.
cool.
Fun.
It was a blast.
Did you run the waterfall?
Oh, I ran the waterfall.
That's a fun
and
little-
I
yeah.
jumped from the little 25-foot cliff they have right there.
Yeah.
Jumped from that. It was a blast. Yeah.
White Salmon is a unique river because they do have a runnable waterfall. It's like a 10 or a 12-foot waterfall. It's not actually a rapid. It's actually a waterfall, but it's safe enough in a certain size of boat that you can actually run it.
Yeah.
So that's
It
a
was
unique thing
fun.
about the White Salmon River.
And it's crazy. Yeah, because there's so much build up to that.
Yeah.
And it is over in like a quarter
Seconds.
second. It is. You don't
right.
even realize what just happened. And you're somehow just like the boat pops back up out of the water. And you're like, all right, okay, is everybody
we're all
alive?
here.
Yeah. But yeah,
fun.
it was a blast. There's my week basically.
That sounds pretty good.
Matt, backpedal force.
I went for a run. 2 days ago, and then I ran yesterday. I ran 2 days in a row. That's
With
crazy.
your 3-year-old or all by yourself?
So I ran with
Or your 6-year-old?
I ran with my
Dash toasted him. Yeah.
I ran with my 9-year-old he was on his bike yesterday, and we only did 1 mile. So it was not, it's nothing to like get excited about, except for I'm excited about it.
That's good.
And the 3-miler I ran by myself. Evan, close your ears for a second. I ran on my trails behind Fallen Leaf Lake on these technical trails that I love. I went super slow, like 13-minute pace or something crazy like that.
Watching your feet.
And my Garmin, I finished that one, and it was like, you have a new 5K PR. And it was like 40 minutes. I was like thinking to myself, I was like, okay, I guess that's it.
No, that's the perfect way to do your season. You guys set the bar to where you can definitely beat it next time.
The thing is like, I've had this watch for a little while. Like, didn't I run some sort of 5K in like,
I guess
maybe
not.
in the 30-minute range?
At the very least.
Anyway, great week.
Good times.
I'm still rehabbing. I'm seeing Mr. Evan Price for some rehab stuff, and it's going swimmingly.
We get to have fun together now.
Yep.
Woo.
Oh, right. Mine real quick. I I cannot put together a training week to save my life. I
man.
was finally kind of feeling like I got past this whole like hand injury, the stitches that I had. And then earlier in the week, I'm working on some stuff and like wrenching and whatnot. And I managed to pop out a few stitches. And then, yeah. So those were out. And then I proceeded to like reopen the wound, like tear it all the way back down to where it originally began. So that was like, I think at that point in time was about 10 days of just like wasted like time of trying to heal. And went out and did cyclocross practice, which was a blast. We had a really good chunk. I think we probably had at least 20 people out there. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow.
And while out there cross practice, like just the way that I was holding the bars and twisting and turning things, opened it up some more. Got home, my hand was just a stinking mess. So, yeah. So I've basically resorted to super glue. Thank you to Kristen, Matt's wife, for the heads up on that and for kind of
It's working a little bit.
Kind of. I think that I need to actually go out and get the liquid super glue because I've been using the gel one. I'm like, oh, this gel that should work. No, I've had to redo it like 3 times now. But the latest one that I put on there and the way that I've bandaged it seems to be doing the trick. But I think the liquid stuff might actually work better. But
Sorry, dude.
nah, it is what it is. But we did the fog hat ride, which was a lot of fun. We did Hawaiian t-shirts. That was freaking awesome.
Oh, fun.
It was like the perfect night. It was kind of like a cool night. It was almost like it was getting ready to rain, but it was still warm temperatures. So it was a little bit cloudy. And you're just riding and you're wearing like your bibs underneath your Hawaiian t-shirt and like the wind's blowing through there. And it felt like kind of like a Hawaiian night. If you've ever been to Hawaii before and you're walking around in a Hawaiian shirt and you get that light breeze and the perfect temperature, that's what it was, but on bikes. And everybody was rocking their Hawaiian t-shirts or their button-ups. So that was a lot of fun. We did get dumped on the way home though. My gosh.
It just rained.
Yeah, it rained pretty hard. But yeah, my shirt's a friggin' mess because of all the road grime that came up. But so we had a fun time doing that, and then I just did another little cross ride over the weekend with Sean Martin and his son Nels, and then Jesse Tonkinson came out and drove as well. So we did a little cross ride. So it was again just another training week where I think I almost got 8 hours in, but I cannot get back to my 10-hour threshold and hold that for any sustainable amount of time because I had to take a day off that I didn't want to, and I had to go easy on a day that I didn't want to because of my stupid hand. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
You're just building up all of this good karma and luck to where you're gonna have like 3 years of 10 hours every single week, and it's gonna somehow piece together well.
I did that for like 4 or 5 years. I averaged 10 hours a week. I mean, it was like every year was 520 plus hours for my training, and I'm just struggling just to try. I'm like 20 hours behind just trying to get 5 hours or 500 hours. So.
Yeah.
You know, here we go. All right, let's run around the table and do some news. The Leadout news. Lance, you want to recap for us?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the Leadville 100 mountain bike race was on Saturday.
Is that on your hit list?
It kind of is. The Leadville, it's 100 miles.
You have to like get in. It's hard to get into that race.
It is hard to get in. You have to either qualify or lottery to get into it, so it's difficult. It's like 2,000 people do it, so it's a really big race. It's a bunch of different corrals.
Start at 10,000 feet.
Leadville, Colorado is at 10,000 feet. It climbs up to 12,000 feet. There's almost 12,000 feet of climbing during the race. So there's a couple of like
a brutal race.
Hour and a half long
Well, and they have
climbs.
an ultra run too.
Yeah.
Same course.
Same course.
Yeah.
And it's the following weekend. I believe it's this weekend.
Want to go do that next year, Matt?
Yeah.
We'll do it together.
They won't let us in. They take one look at me and they would laugh.
There are people that do both.
Do you have to have
That's cool.
You have to live above 5,000 feet to even make the lottery, right?
I think that they would enjoy watching you squirm.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've always been interested in it. I have a couple friends that have competed in it several years. Jason Woodland is a friend of mine from the Salt Lake area, and he did it just over 9 hours this year. Wow. And his son did it with him as well, Jackson, I believe.
If you break 10, you get a certain belt buckle.
If you break 9, you get a certain belt buckle. If you break 10, I believe it's something else. He has a belt buckle from previous
10,
years,
and I can't remember what he got for it, but
It's
he's been going
something.
for the belt buckle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The winner. So the same Education First Tour pros that have been doing all the gravel events all went to Leadville as well. Alex Howes, Lachlan Morton, Taylor Finney, Peter Statina.
Yep.
They all showed up as well.
It's so different from
That's
what
so
they
cool.
normally.
I'm so glad that they're doing that.
Well, I know some of those guys did that at least Lachlan, I think, did the this one in England where they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, they
what's the
rode
name of that
across.
Did you see that whole YouTube video for it?
Yeah.
It's an awesome video, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe we can leave a link to that somewhere.
Yeah.
They're doing cool stuff.
So those guys all showed up. Lachlan took third. Peter Stetina took fourth. Alex House took fifth. So they did not win.
Which is kind of like what they've been doing in all these things.
Right.
Except for that
They've
England
been
one,
like
he just-
on the podium, but not. Yeah. The winner was Howard Grotz. It's his third year winning in a row.
Wow.
Yeah, so he is a pretty solid guy.
So he's got that race figured out.
Yes, he does. But there's rumors that he might be retiring. The second place guy was Quinn Simmons, 18 years old.
Who?
Oh, wow.
What? That does not add up.
Quinn Simmons, 18 years old. He did win the U.S. Junior Road Racing Championship last year and the Junior Mountain Bike Racing Championship this year.
Test that guy for drugs.
No, I do.
So he is solid.
I actually do remember seeing this kid last year
wonder
at
if-
the Nationals.
I wonder who's lined up at his front door to sign the kid.
I don't know.
Trek. That's just weird.
So get
Please
this.
no. Please no. Do not go to
You start in different corrals. You know, the faster you do in a qualifying race, the better corral that you get to start with. Well, Quinn was 18. You have to be 18 to do the race. So it's the first time he didn't have a call up or a good corral. He started mid pack behind 1,000 people.
Jeez.
EF better literally sign him tomorrow. Like, if I was EF, I would have signed him at mile 90.
So he hammers like the first 15 miles to get to the front group and then stays with them and then flatted several times because people had thrown tacks in some areas to try to sabotage the race.
Gosh.
But got through that, ended up getting on the EF Education guy's wheel at the end and then out sprinted him.
I hope they have a
That's how he
video.
took second.
I hope EF posts a video.
They need to do a documentary on that kid.
So another guy I follow, Payson McKelvin, he took third the last 2 years, but he ended up 12th. He got food poisoning the night before from eating at a saloon somewhere there in
Sushi.
in
Well, yeah,
Leadville.
because that's way out there. Leadville is not
It's
like
not very
this is
big.
not Boulder. Yeah, you're racing it.
Anyway, so that's the
That is
stories
exciting
I have from
stuff.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
Evan, you got some news for us?
All right, shifting gears to first I'll stay in the cycling world for 1 second. So I'll go international news, then national news. Vincenzo Nibali's career is about to tragically end as he just recently signed with Trek. So
Oh, he did.
I assume that's retirement, right? I mean, is he just announcing his retirement
Check
then?
was terrible last year.
Or is
this
that
year.
Is Trek the kiss of death? Like
Yes.
just having any sort of
Yes, it is.
anything to do with Trek.
Yeah.
It might be.
I think it is.
Our experience for the last couple months, that is the case.
Not good. It's not been good
It's
to
not
me.
been
I feel
good.
like maybe we need to have somebody from Trek on here to
I don't know.
defend, because I feel like we're just ragging on Trek, but it's really easy at this point. It's almost getting too easy to. But yeah, Nibali. I mean, I'm Italian, so I love great Italians. He's had a great career.
He's had a
hopefully-
great career. I love how you
hopefully
talk past
he'll
tense.
he'll ride off into the sunset, into retirement here in the next 6 months, and has a great career behind him. So
There you
yeah.
go.
That's funny.
In triathlon news, in Cleveland, Ohio,
Yes.
the national championship for the amateur Olympic and sprint distance was this last weekend, and this is the second year that Cleveland has had it. From what I was not there personally, but once again, they put on a good race. They put on a great race last year when I was there. And this year, the men's defending champ, Justin Lippert, won again
Oh, wow.
in the Olympic distance.
I would just say that he seems like he's in significantly better shape this year than last year.
Yes.
I think last year he won in a Speedo.
Yes.
This
he did.
year, not so much.
He was in a
So
sponsored
that's
kit,
one.
'cause
That's one strike against him. Putting clothes on is a strike against you.
He's getting further and further away from his core. But no, he has had a really, I'll say, like, polarizing last year, but really great last year, in my opinion. This kid came in and, obviously, like, he won a Speedo last year. He's pretty brash. I think a lot of people, he ended up on U.S. Triathlon's magazine cover. He is polarizing. There was even, so when he's coming up to the finish line for the win, the video that got posted is as he breaks the tape, L's F yeah at the top of his lungs, which I'm I'm gonna be honest. I like the kid. I'm very biased towards him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of emotion in that moment.
Well, and people loved it when Shalane Flanagan said the same thing when she won. Did she win Boston?
Yes.
Or whatever it was. She was like,
I was
it's all
seeing
kind
that
of bleeped
double
out.
standard there, and just because he's this Speedo wearing kid, like there were so many people who were like, "Oh, that's classless." I was like, "Okay, you go ahead and do 146 and win the Olympic nationals." You like couch warrior.
I might mess this up. I think he went 31:50 for his 10K split.
He did.
Oh my gosh.
Running off the bike, and he biked 57, so it wasn't like he was, he wasn't coasting.
He's got just being somebody who I want to see his career develop.
Yep.
He's got to get a lot stronger on the bike. But this last year, he got a lot stronger in the swim, which was awesome to see. He went from last year, he was coming out of the water not that far ahead of me last year, and now he's a competitive swimmer. So
is he? Okay.
Yeah, his run is otherworldly. I mean, he ran at Clemson, so he's got the running pedigree.
And even for a good runner, 31:50 off the bike is hard.
I mean, that's ITU level. And also, I ran that course last year. That is the opposite of a fast course.
Is it? Yeah.
It has 2 massive climbs in it. It is not a fast course by any means. So,
well, congratulations for him. I mean, we're happy for you. We like him. So
I think he's great. I cannot wait to see this next year.
He's a big part of this full send triathlon group, which
he's the creator of it. Yeah,
which I think is actually really cool. They seem very youthful and hilarious. Like
we need that in triathlon.
I think so.
Triathlon got a little serious.
They had this really funny Instagram video where they were all sitting like eating their cereal. They all had like Aero helmets on.
That's awesome.
It was all matching Aero helmets. It was just so funny. These guys are good. They're good people.
I heard somebody make a really cool comparison. The full send team for triathlon is going to be like what Tin Man has been for running recently.
Yeah,
the Tin Man crew is kind of that young, vibrant, fun group of guys. Same thing with full send. So
we will see.
We will. Yeah. Also, just running through the other names. Rachel Mensch won the women's side, the women's side in the Olympic distance, and Gabby Brochard won the sprint, and Travis Wood won the sprint for the men. Side. Yeah, so. Those were the sprint races were really close times too. That's really exciting when you see like those real in a non-draft race, seeing it come down to the wire like that's really, really cool to see. So
what's the cumulative time for those people running or doing the sprint?
So for the sprint, if you're going to be winning, you're under an hour. Yep. I think for the women, the winning time was 1:06, which is moving. That's fast.
So, again, for those that don't know the distances, it's what?
Yeah.
What are the distances for the swim, bike, and the run?
So for an Olympic, I'll say the sprint distances, and just double all those for the Olympic.
Correct.
The swim is a 750 meter. The bike is 12.6 miles. 12.4 miles.
20K.
Yeah,
it's 20 kilometers. Yeah.
And then a 5K run. So 3.1 miles. And this year in Cleveland, they shortened the Olympic distance swim, so it was only a 750 swim. Which
that plays a big role.
Plays in, especially compared to last year, where last year's swim was a mile swim in the roughest water I've ever swam in my entire life.
Wow.
So yeah, it definitely became a bike runner's race.
Yeah,
this year. Yep.
So sub hours, like that's winning numbers. You ever done that before?
I haven't raced a sprint in years and years, but yes, I would be going under an hour. I can confidently say that depending on the course.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How about a healthy Matt?
No.
You'd be close.
No, I don't think so.
103, 104.
Yeah. I think I've gone maybe like I've never broken 2 in an Olympic, like 2:0 such and such.
Yeah.
And that would not translate. You know, it's really, I don't get that much faster in a sprint.
Yeah,
at my advanced age.
Sprint's tough.
I broke an hour.
I just don't.
Sprint once.
Did you really?
Yes,
wow.
I did.
You broke an hour?
I broke an hour. It was a 400 meter swim.
400 meters.
I broke an hour.
Whispered it out. It was a 1 mile run, but no.
I think it took me an hour just to do the swim.
It still counts. It still counts
these days. Yeah. Awesome, Matt. Do you have any news for us?
I do. I can't think of anything that comes to mind. No.
Gotcha. Real quick. You guys are the runners of the group. Rosie Ruiz ring a bell?
Yes. She is Rosie, what's an interval? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Woman who cheated in the Boston Marathon, correct?
No. Yeah.
Correct.
And
yes. She course cut.
She also technically holds the world record in the marathon, right? I think her time. I think she'd be the world. I think she finished like an hour and something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah, little known fact, Eliud Kipchoge is not the world record holder in the marathon. It is Rosie.
Well, you can cue the sad trombone. She passed away at the age of 66 this past weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Yep.
I
A
don't
way
know.
to go
that's
for
tough.
making fun of her, Evan.
That made news. Hey, I was not the only one. She was getting trashed all over social
tough.
media, which is not good to see. But yeah, she's a very infamous name in the running world.
I figured
'cause-
Evan would know who she was. So.
Yeah.
And then
Very
there-
infamous name.
There was another race here locally. It was the Swift 200 or /100 road
Yep.
race. And
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit of a mix of road and gravel. They still haven't posted the results, but I know in the men's open for the 200-mile variety, our own teammate, Chris Surratt, got second place.
Took second
I
place.
saw the video
Yeah.
or the pictures from that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's 200 miles.
Oh my gosh.
Chris is such a stud.
200 miles.
I know. I just saw on Strava it was like 200 miles, and I just thought
It was
at
like
first
11
it
or
was a training ride. I was
12,000
like, oh yeah,
feet
Chris
of
would do
climbing.
that.
Yeah.
11 or 12,000 feet of climbing in that as well. So that is a beast of a day. I
It's
mean,
a long day.
it's basically like the STP, the Seattle to Portland we've done with over twice as much climbing. I just can't even fathom that.
Is it like never too late to try and go pro? Can Chris still give that a shot? Because that's, I mean, if he's
Man, if there's one guy that's just knocking it out of the park left and right, and this isn't the first year he's done this. He's been every year he does these big giant races.
Yeah.
And he does really well.
I don't know how he has time to do all of that stuff because he's got family too.
he's
Like,
a busy guy.
He's
He's
got
a
two
very
kids,
busy guy.
Yeah, 2 kids.
full-time job.
Yep.
Time management.
Yeah. It's a full family affair, though, because I know that the kids are riding and racing and they have fun, and he's a great family man. He does a great
Yeah.
job, and then his wife is fully supportive of it. And
Yeah.
it's just an awesome story. I love the guy. So
Good job,
Good
Chris.
job, Chris.
Woo.
I don't have the full results, though. I just know that he got second place. I'm not sure who won the women's side. I don't know who won the 100-mile variety as well. So just wanted to say congratulations. Job well done. Last week, on episode number 76, if you hadn't been listening, we kind of jumped into a little bit on some performance enhancing drugs, and
rhymes with which session we were talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about our gripe. We call it a gripe session.
Our
Gripe
gripe
session.
I feel like if we made a like a highlights list, we could almost come up together with an entire episode of us talking about PEDs from separate episodes.
we've done a few touch and goes for sure, and it was just one of those things that like you guys got to talking, and I'm like, I had questions that I wanted to ask you, but that show would have ended up being like 3 hours long. So you know what?
Here we go.
We're gonna do it this week. We're gonna talk about performance enhancing and drugs, and we're gonna hit it from every angle. So, who would like to start us off? Anybody?
Is anybody here doing that at the
Bueller?
table?
Oh yeah, tons of experience. Let me just start.
Caffeine and donuts.
I'm
Actually,
more,
there's donuts
I'm more
right
here just for asking questions. How do you use them?
Yeah. So here's what I thought was interesting. I have actually like gone online and said like, no, you can't use some of these things. Like you can't get a therapeutic exemption for testosterone. And I've probably said that on this podcast in the past, whatever, we're on like episode 76 or something. So
77.
I have made
So 75
many
times.
mistakes in the past. And one of the things that I thought would be interesting is just coming on here and actually like looking into it and seeing like, oh, I was wrong. Like you can get a therapeutic exemption for testosterone. You know, there are hoops to jump through, but like, let me start by just saying like, I don't know this stuff and I was wrong, like dead wrong. Like I would argue with you, like you can't get a therapeutic exemption for testosterone. Like that's against the rules. So whoops on that one. Completely wrong. You can.
But USADA allows it if a doctor prescribes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, DUE.
So you want to go through?
My gosh.
I know.
This is like the
Which-
only time I think that I've been right and Matt's been wrong. Because generally, like I think 9 out of 10 times, it's like Matt's right. Evan definitely just making up stuff right now. But
So what's interesting is it is hard to get like a therapeutic exemption. You know, the doctor and you as a patient have to jump through a lot of hoops, which means it's going to cost you a lot of money, which in a lot of cases amongst certain peer groups, like that's not an issue. But basically you have to jump through some hoops and you actually have to be tested like twice. Because with testosterone, one of the big things is like, and my wife is always like, well, this is stupid because people's numbers go all over the place. So if you test someone in the afternoon or something like that, their numbers are going to be low. And then all of a sudden it looks like they're low all the time. Nope. You just test at a certain time of day. Yeah. Then they get whatever the doctor, whatever they want, which is the
But they also
T
kind of
exemption.
depends on how well you slept over the last couple days.
Well,
what
think
kind of stress you're under.
hormonal
all those
cycles.
hormonals.
Hormonal
It's
Yes.
like literally hormonal cycles.
So they're all over
there's
the
a name,
place.
Yeah.
And so if you read the exemption piece here, which I looked up, which I just thought was interesting because, again, I thought it was impossible. It'll say, like, you need to be tested between, 10 and 1 or like a time of day that they give, and that you have to have 2 separate tests, and then you have to provide that information along with the form that you have to fill out. And so there is a fair amount of, well, I don't know how much that is, but it sounds like it's at least a little bit difficult. That they're at least trying to make it at least a little bit difficult to go through that therapeutic exemption process, which good on them for doing that. Yeah. I was always under the impression that you couldn't even get a therapeutic exemption for testosterone. And that was kind of like, I was kind of happy about that process. I was like, yeah, you can't even get this. Like, people that are doing this are just in the wrong. It turns out you can, but yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of a couple of hoops to jump through, and I'm sure people do it. So that information will never be public. Like, if you have a therapeutic exemption, we'll never know about it. So it's just, it is what it is. And if you get drug tested, you probably have to provide that information. Like, yep, I do have a 2 for this one. TUE is often used for the acronym for therapeutic exemption.
I think the problem here though is like, I agree, Matt, in a perfect world, this would be really hard to go through, and there would need to be recheck and check just to make sure, that
you're not like,
it's
I
obviously
just didn't
needed.
sleep. Yeah.
But here's the thing is that if you are willing to cheat, there are the grand majority of medical doctors are great people not trying to help people cheat.
Right.
But in the world of cheating, the word passes on the internet. So if you are somebody who's looking, want to do really well at Masters Nationals this year, it is not hard in today's world to get online, ask who are the doctors who.
Yep. Yeah, there's plenty of unscrupulous people out there. Yeah.
Who do I go to? And this system's easy to beat if you have a doctor who is willing to jump through these hoops. And that's not conspiracy theory. You can look up any article. There are doctors willing to jump through these hoops with you because there's financial gains for them at the end of the day if they become known as that person. Now,
true. Or the doctor believes that, like, and here's my thing is, like, this may be like, there might be some buy-in to this. Like, it may be good for you to be on, like, testosterone.
That's the other great question.
And if you're, and I don't even
just
know
from a health point of view,
like, that's the thing that I kind of always like, okay, well, like, you start to look at some of the benefits and things like that, and it's not something that I'm interested in trying or anything like that, but like
hormonal replacement therapy is a big hot word topic in the medical
world.
And
it's this whole like,
we know the good stuff from it, right? Increased muscle mass, increased stamina,
recovery, eyesight,
recovery faster. Your HGH levels will raise naturally. If
tendon healing improves, your recovery after hard workouts.
So
what's the
downside?
There are downsides.
Well,
this is I am not the expert on this by any means, but there are, and this is just from people who have talked to me who know a lot more about this from a medical perspective. There are not great long-term longitudinal studies yet done on long-term hormonal replacement therapy.
But what I'm wondering
it can get dangerous.
Now that there's this huge, massive amount of people doing it, by the time I'm like 60, 70, like, it might be one of those things where it's like, we've got longitudinal studies. Like, we have the data, and if it looks good, if I'm 60, 70.
What if it doesn't, though?
If it doesn't, then good. Then,
I mean, that's like, I mean, like, I'm saying, like, in the medical field, we're always looking back 20, 30 years ago and going like, oh, God, that was bad. Yeah.
And that's great. Like, that's the benefit of me not, taking it for the next 20, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm 70, maybe, I don't know. Like, it's some of the benefits look good. And one of the articles that I passed around was this journalist that did it, and he was like, it was. I thought it was very interesting. It was on, I think it's Outdoor Magazine. He posted this article, and it's actually quite old. I think it's from like 2008 or before. And he was like, I'm a cyclist. I'm going to go through all these drugs, and the 3 drugs he went through was like steroids. I think it was HGH,
EPO,
and EPO. So like some pretty hardcore stuff. And he was like, would I do these in the future? And he was like, steroids, hell no. Like, and then it was like EPO, no, don't, but it was like HGH, yeah, maybe, because his eyesight got better. Like weird stuff, like a scar healed that was like from high school. And it's just like all this weird stuff. I was like, well, that sounds pretty good.
Have I explained on this podcast so there's a big misnomer with HGH. People think when you hear HGH, I think the first thing that pops into people's heads is Mark McGuire and muscles. HGH does not build muscular tissue. It's actually released in the healing process of the tendinous attachment, basically. So the biggest benefit of HGH is its recovery aspects, not its pure strength building aspects. It's indirectly, yes, it can cause improvements in, strength and all of that, but it's mostly because it is helping the healing tendinous process. So that's why it helps things like, eyesight,
AC separation.
Yeah. All those things that Matt just tore in his AC joint.
Does it fix bruises on your butt?
Sure. There we go. Just
Four nerves in your shoulder.
There you go. Just consider. I'm not sure about nerve healing. I'm not going to throw nerve healing out there, but let me look that one up for you, Jake.
One of the benefits of HGH is that they actually have to grind up babies to inject them.
Oh, God.
So I'm all for that.
That's fantastic.
I'm personally all for baby grinding. Is that what Matt just said?
Let's grind those babies up, inject it directly into my shoulder. I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Taken out of context, that means exactly what Matt wants it to.
I'm pretty sure our podcast is not going to be rated PG this week.
I already cussed on
Oh
it.
man, we're in trouble.
We're gonna have to get the PG-12 rating on this. Yeah, but I think when you look at it from the perspective of, okay, if it's healthy, but if it is good for long-term health, should we start, I don't know, in amateur sports allowing some of these? I think the only problem with that is if your goal is just, hey, I want to be healthy and all that, then get out of the racing game, because the racing game to me is, especially when we're talking about the amateur field, is creating a level playing field where humans compete.
And what's interesting, I think we all kind of see eye to eye on this. It's like, I don't have a problem with Evan taking testosterone, HGH, whatever, but don't race.
Yes,
don't race.
Thank you.
If you're doing it for your health, that's great. Whatever.
Don't race
or
them.
don't have road rage, roid rage and hurt someone. But
Exactly.
other than that,
So one of my college buddies this weekend, he came to me and he said, Lance, have you had your testosterone level checked? And I go, no. And he goes, why not?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because
doesn't matter. Yeah.
I race. That was my first answer.
Yep.
I just go, because I race. If I wasn't racing, even though I've never been tested, and I don't know when I would be tested, but I'm like, taking that extra testosterone, it has all these benefits, but I consider it cheating if I'm racing. If I'm lining up against everybody else and it's not a level playing field because I've been taking testosterone for the last year and a half, then it's not fair. So,
well, if you can get a therapeutic exemption for it.
Yeah,
and
you saw it says it could be fair.
So can everybody else. I'm not that I'm saying that I'm pro.
No,
but
I'm with you. So yeah, how do we justify that?
Yeah.
That, okay, I'm almost 50 years old. I probably could get a therapeutic exemption for low testosterone. But do people get that exemption and then they double or triple or quadruple their dose?
Why wouldn't you?
And that's another question. How, when you get that exemption, how do they have parameters of how much you can actually have? And
they have suggested guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it becomes
how you should administer stuff. But it's, it's a combination of all these different ways that you can administer stuff, right? That's injections or creams or whatever. And the creams, for example, are at your discretion, and I actually read one guy posting on this is the problem with the internet a lot of times. It's you don't know what you're getting yourself into. He came on, a slow twitch forum, which is like a triathlon forum. And he said, I have low T and my doctor has prescribed this stuff. And he said, I'm thinking about maybe just upping my dosage before a race. What have you guys done? Have you guys done something similar?
Yeah, completely clueless.
He seriously posted on Slow Twitch?
Yep.
Oh, he just got ripped apart,
just
I'm
got
sure.
ripped apart.
Slow Twitch is brutal.
People are just I'm going to grab a bag of popcorn. I'm going to watch the responses.
Because here it comes.
Here it comes.
Slow Twitch is
hilarious.
Slow Twitch is like Twitter to high schoolers. It's
it's one of those things where it's you can tell the guy that just didn't know.
Yeah,
just
poor
assumed
guy.
that this
I feel bad for him.
This is part of the deal, right?
I
The
know.
doctor said this was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How close should I take this to his
So
face?
one of my questions would be, I'm guessing that there are a large group of people that are taking testosterone, especially as we get into the older populations.
I'm sure there are.
But my gut feeling is that they're not even doing therapeutic exemptions, which I'm guessing it's probably less than 5% of those people.
In our local scene, we are never tested. So why would they even want to get a therapeutic exemption other than if they were going to do some UCI races or some national racing?
But let's be honest. I'm sure if you ask people from nationals, how many people at nationals are getting tested?
That happens. It does. Yeah.
How many would you say though? If there's a 75 guys in the field, how many?
Less than 10%.
Tested?
Yeah.
Usually.
But
Your odds are good. Yeah.
It's kind of random too.
Yeah.
Yep. It should be random. Yeah.
But I have a friend that does a lot of racing.
He's been tested.
He's been tested.
Okay.
Which I think is great. Like I got tested in the NCAA like twice per season. And I was like, this is good.
That's what I was going to ask is if you had gotten tested at that D1 level.
I got tested basically like prior to being on the team, and I think the school probably paid for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then NCAA championships got tested, which it was kind of like,
did everybody get tested at NCAA championship?
No.
See, I think everybody should get tested.
It was a random test group. It happened to be like 3 people from the University of Alabama out of like the 10 people tested, and so you got a field of 250 people. 3 of them were from Alabama. There was 10 people probably tested overall.
Yeah,
it's like they just thought Alabama was dirty.
So
which is fine.
Like, anybody test positive?
No.
I competed 4 years.
I tested Matt LeGrand, squeaky clean.
I competed 4 years D1 track and field and did hundreds of track meets. I was never tested once. But I was also not the level of athlete that Matt was.
Well, I think we're kind of stretching here.
I did make it to nationals,
they looked at Alabama and they were like, that Matt LeGrand guy right there. We're going to get him. We're going to get him.
I think it was
raid his camper van.
I think it was literally like, Alabama, they are cheating, which, like, great, test us. Come on, bring it on.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You guys had a lot of East Africans on the team, right?
We had a lot of East Africans on the team.
And this is not me making any generalization. Sure. There's a lot of doping that goes on in East Africa.
They have some issues for sure, and it was questionable at that time. There was kind of I think it's gone back and forth, just like anywhere, right? Like I think there was a large portion of time where East African people were very skeptical. Like, I don't want to take any medicine. Are you giving me Tylenol? Hell no. Like, nothing. And then the other side of the coin flipped, and it was like, oh, we're all doing, EPO.
I think it was like
also needles on the side of the track.
I think also they were like at least from what I've read and seen from the actual they were very misled, misguided.
Yes.
People with vested interests outside of the health of these runners. And I think that it was the unfortunate kind of destruction of that pure kind of East African running culture.
Yeah, I think you had in my opinion, I placed a lot of that blame on, managerial kind of people coming in that were sports agents, and one of the priorities is for their own pocketbook to make money.
Oh yeah, right.
So and then you basically have this quick cultural development of like, if you want to run fast, like this is the only way to do it.
Take this. Yeah.
So I think that's tough.
Okay, so let's run around the table real quick. Would you guys, under any circumstances, ever take performance-enhancing drugs?
Does caffeine count?
In certain doses, it's technically a PED.
No, I would not.
You would not. Gotcha.
I don't think we'd consider that.
No.
Gotcha. Evan, would you?
No.
Matt, would you?
No, absolutely not. But
I'm on the same.
But let me just say this: if it was, if I wasn't going to compete in sports,
that was my next question that I was going to ask real quick.
Or if it was within the rules, right? So this is actually one of the difficulties that I have, right? My standard answer for this is like, if it's within the rules, I think it's fair game, right? Like caffeine, sure.
Right.
Beet juice, heck yeah, that's fine. Like, I have no problems with this stuff. And these are performance enhancing like activities that you can do. And so my general rule is like, if it's within the rules and Evan wants to try it, I feel like that's fair. But the therapeutic exemption piece is within the rules, and I have a problem with it. So that's hard for me. It's a hard pill for me to swallow.
This is the
and
problem.
I'm not sure how to answer that.
The rules become gray at times, and the rules at times become easier. I won't say easy to sidestep. They become possible to sidestep, and that's where it's tough to say, okay, well, is every TUE ethical? And it's like, well, no, I don't think that every TUE is ethical, because if I look at it, and it is a significant improvement to your performance.
Yeah.
And me just being in the medical field, I know how to, like, trust me, your doctor's not some magical wizard that knows exactly if you actually need that testosterone or not. That doctor needs to go to the next patient. And if you're going to sit there and tell him, I feel super tired, and you're going to tell him the right words the entire time, and he tests you and you're just barely at that threshold blood numbers wise, he's going to give you that. Yeah.
So let's say that you have a medical necessity for this, for whatever reason, just whatever, just plug in your thing. And then you find it necessary to take, say, testosterone. And that just gets you back up to par so that you can have longevity, so that you can have a normal life. Would you quit your respective sport? Would you quit racing?
I still steal KOMs, but I wouldn't race anymore.
I think that's the right answer. I think it's like don't line up.
Yeah,
I would still race, but I'm going to use an example.
Okay.
I'm going to use an example. It would need to be with a TUE. So I have a friend who he had cancer and took on his comeback to cycling took testosterone, and that is a case I would look at and be like, well, if that was me, if I had
did he race on certain drugs?
No, I don't believe he did at that time. But
he afterwards, yeah.
I would that was a long time ago.
Right.
But he's a great racer now and literally races on nothing but bread and water. Literally bread and water. That's like actually his diet, I think. But there, if I was in that situation coming back, let's say from a year or two bout with cancer, and I needed racing to get, we talk about this table, letting go of racing is big for you may say you would chase KOMs, Lance, you would miss the heck out of racing.
Oh, I did. It's
oh
totally
God,
giving me purpose to my life right now.
And
sidebar question real quick. Is there a difference between chasing KOMs on testosterone and motor pacing behind a moped?
There's not. I don't
So
know.
do that guy now.
Motor pacing's worse.
Flag.
I have motor paced a few KOMs.
Flag.
But if you're looking at that and you knew that the only way you were going to be able to throw a leg over the bike and even pedal over 100 watts was if you were on some hormonal replacement coming back from something like chemotherapy.
But
I
think we could come up with something. I think someone, okay, let's say like this person's on drugs and they need it and whatever it is, and they're crushing it in a race, and we're thinking like, well, some of that's probably from the drugs you're taking. I'd be okay with it. I would just say, like, let's take you out of the results. Like, you did great. Like, you were second place or whatever. That second place medal, we're going to give it to someone else. Sorry,
I think
but, like,
once
keep racing. Like, we want you to be a part of the community.
Once your blood numbers normalize back after this, though, that's when the TUE needs to go away. Yeah. I don't think this is something where it's like, well, for the rest of your life you can race with testosterone. Well, it's there's a time period.
What if there wasn't a stigma, and what if there was a whole different category where you declared like, I'm on therapeutic exemption, I'm using whatever, fill in the blank
division,
and you get to race against other people that are doing that as well, and it was just a whole different category.
I always thought that this was like a fun like mind question, just kind of roll through like,
that's what bodybuilding does.
What if we
carte
had
blanc? Everybody do whatever you want.
Olympic level, like we're gonna have Olympics, and we're gonna have Olympics with drugs, like on your mark, set, go.
Yeah,
and I think that'd be
wild.
I think it would be extremely profitable for the televised. I feel like it might get more television coverage than the actual Olympics. Like, some interesting stuff could come of that.
Do you think?
And I don't necessarily have a huge problem with it, because I don't know if I like to think that it might help, like steer people out of the normal sport and just like get out of our sport. If you're on drugs, like go do your own thing. I don't know. It probably wouldn't help.
I think I think you're onto something. I bet if you did that, I bet a lot less at the top level would dope. Because at that point, okay, now I'm in this race where I know everybody's doping. I've now lost that cheating advantage, at least in my head. You've lost now that advantage.
Yeah,
I'm just going to stop using and go back down to the. Well, there's no thing is you'd have to say
using,
like you can't just stop using and go back down, because as they've researched, if you have years and years of built up great training volume,
that's a whole nother argument. And I've had this with some good friends where it's like, if you stop using drugs, are you, should you be okay to race? And in my opinion, it's like, once you started using drugs for a couple of years and you have all this, like, I've been able to recover and I've been able to do 100-mile rides on the daily. It's like,
back
no,
to back
come
to
on.
back
like,
to back.
You have that muscle memory. And this is my experience. Like, I ran a lot of miles and I have that muscle memory, and that's an advantage for me. Like, that's a competitive advantage. Like, and that's a lot of reasons, you'll see people that are in their 40s and they start running, and guess what? They can't beat me, even though they train 5 times as much as I do.
Right.
And that's kind of, it's like, well, sorry, it's not fair. But the reason is because I put in all that training in my 20s. I think drugs could be the same thing, where it's like they had this block of time on drugs. So that's why I kind of feel like banned for life is a serious consideration for people that have tested positive for, certain drugs and things like that. If it's, tainted meat or something like that, like, okay, let's give people the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, like,
whatever, Contador,
if if you have 2 strikes and you're using stuff like EPO, like, just get out of the sport. Like, ban for life. Like, I think we should really consider that as an option.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what do you think society would want to watch more if there were 2 concurrent categories? No, seriously though.
No,
I mean,
I
The
agree.
dopers.
they're gonna want to watch. They want bigger. They want stronger. Than
Yeah.
faster. And
I would rather watch the non-dopers, and that's just because in my head I've always thought of Jans. Okay, whether Jans Voigt used or not.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows who Jans Voigt was, he was a.
He did.
You think so?
I do. He
See,
was in that era. He did.
They all
But the
did,
thing is,
yeah.
the guy like never won. He was always the guy who would just like kill himself at the front.
The top
I like
100,
to.
they
I like
all
to go.
did.
I like
It
to
was
go to
probably
bed.
more than that.
I like to go to bed at night thinking that Jans Voigt was clean,
I know.
and I would
all
rather
do.
watch Jans Voigt in a field of clean guys than watch Contador and the Schlecks go at it all day.
I think you're only fooling yourself.
Probably.
I think if you were like these two shows are on at the exact same time,
Yeah.
you might like try to flip back and forth, but
Yeah.
you'd want to watch that doped stuff. Like they're just doped to the gills and they're climbing, Alpe
There's, like,
d'Huez or
attacking
something.
each other at
like,
20 miles an hour on Alpe d'Huez. Yeah.
It would be really hard not to
that
watch
stuff
that.
is
Yeah.
forever changing. Just think about how much drugs have changed in the last 20 or 30 years,
Yeah.
and how they're able to push the envelope. Like
Microdosing
you're only
now,
going to
yeah.
see the person who is like doing crazy
Mm-hmm.
cool things come along once in a couple generation, versus like the drug stuff could be like morphing into something completely different every like 4 to 5 years. And like, oh my gosh, did you see that person? Their
Yeah.
their FTP for that 200-mile ride was 700. It's just like, wow.
Yeah. Just 7. Yeah. All of a sudden 400 becomes like a
Yeah.
Cat 5 level. Everybody's on testosterone, and yeah.
So people want to watch that stuff, and I think baseball back in the 90s is perfect
Yeah.
evidence
Yeah.
for them,
Yeah.
because it was the all-time attendance.
Sammy Sosa and
and
McGuire
viewers-
saved baseball.
Exactly.
Yep.
And people still
home
love
run
watching.
chase.
Yeah.
Yep.
People got into that. They like seeing those 500-foot home runs. It's just
Yeah.
there's something majestic about it, even though they were cheating and
They
people
were,
knew it.
They were they really weren't, because they just didn't have any sort of rules against taking drugs. I mean, in baseball, it was really bad in the early 2000s. That changed.
Yeah.
But there was basically free for all for those guys.
Yep.
I don't really think that they were necessarily
Do we-
cheating at that time. It was the publicity that caused the rule change. That these guys are all doped to the gills on everything. They're taking everything.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, and I actually think that, I mean, for us, because we're, very sensitive to the issue, we were all like, get rid of, that's ridiculous. But I think a lot of the public was like, let them do what they want.
Yeah.
They should be,
Well,
it's their own body.
This was the thing that cracked me up, is then how come when Lance Armstrong's situation came around, those same people that in baseball were like, no, let's let Mark and Sammy slug it out there. Why all of a sudden were they like, let's burn Lance at the stake here?
Well, it all came about at the same time.
Yeah.
And the French hated the fact
That's
that
true,
American
the
cyclists was
French,
winning. Yeah.
And because
That was
Lance
different.
Armstrong destroyed people and destroyed lives.
he did.
And,
Yes, this is true.
And
Horrible
McGuire
things.
and Sosa did not.
I'm sure if you look back at McGuire's history, I'm sure that guy probably had a couple.
But not like
not
Armstrong
at
did.
the same level.
McGuire
yeah.
is a decent, honest, nice person.
Was he?
Honest, I don't know if you use that word exactly, but he was,
Decent,
he was,
nice,
he was
yeah.
a great guy.
Okay.
I, I know people that have known him because he was in the Long Beach area, which wasn't too far away. And they
Yeah,
always said
yeah,
he was
you
a
were
great
right
guy.
around where he
So-
was.
And if we
Okay.
want to compare other
Well, that makes me
drug-
like him more.
I think if we want to compare other drug users to Lance, we should stick with cycling and look at, all of the other cyclists that we like love and forgive, because they weren't doing the kind of stuff that Lance was doing. They weren't like destroying people's lives.
Contador came back and was still a hero in his country. So, yeah.
I know. It's hard.
Contador, Leipheimer, Danielson,
Yeah.
There's
Hincapie.
a ton of people. Like
Waters.
Hincapie is who I always think of.
So do we all really? So sitting at this table now, baseball side, just cycling, is the Peloton clean now?
No.
That's
I
a
agree.
good question.
No, it's
I
not.
don't think so either. I think they've just found better ways to hide it.
Drug administration is always a few years ahead of the testing process.
Yeah.
And it's the idiots that keep using that stuff once they figure out the testing protocol for it. Those are the ones that get popped in. We still see that happening to this day. It's like you
there's still random guys getting
pretty
popped left and
dumb
right.
to get popped. It's the ones that are just basically working with the best doctors out there that know how to get through things, how to mask things that are still using. And I think that it's happening.
Now we're seeing a big increase in young cyclists winning big races now. Are kids using at younger ages now, do you think?
I don't know. I think you're going to see some kids coming up. I mean, here's another question: is cycling growing? Because I I would have to say probably no. But
Probably
when
not,
something is growing and something is on the rise, I don't think it's growing here in the States, maybe abroad, but you're going to attract more people to the sport. And then you're going to have somebody who would have been like the world's best soccer player all of a sudden turned into like the world's best cyclist that came up, and all of a sudden he blew people's minds because he was introduced to the appropriate sport, in our opinion, cycling.
Well, it's like it's a numbers game, right? Like you just have enough numbers, you expect records to go down.
Yes.
Right. And so if that's not the case and records are going down, then it lends itself to believe that maybe there's something else going on.
Right.
So yeah, it's tough, when you see records on Alpe d'Huez, like that's the things that we should,
Well, Marco I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure Marco Panatani's record still is held.
I'm pretty sure he was clean.
He was. No, he definitely was.
He's got like a little trail of white.
He took a bump at the bottom.
Every Italian is clean. Hey, do not talk down Marco Panatani. That was
you're talking about a hero here.
El Pirate was my childhood hero next to Lance.
Oh, okay.
That's an interesting question that I have for you, Evan, because you are like
Panatani was clean.
You're like enamored with Panatani and with Armstrong and a lot of those cyclists in that era, and they were all
horrible
cheaters.
Oh, anybody listening to me, I'm sure they're
so
thinking,
how
they're
do you
like, Evan
justify
has
that?
got to be using all of his heroes are like these terrible. Like, I love in endurance sports those like transcendent athletes that were win at all costs, which is hilarious because when it comes to me personally, I would lose my mind and be so pissed off if I found out that somebody I just total lined with this last weekend was doping.
Right.
Like, let's say I'm not even going to like toss out names by any means because I have nothing.
Yeah.
Let's say that the guys who were racing in Boulder, let's say next year we find out that 10 of those guys tested positive.
Oh, you'd be livid.
I would get on this podcast and lose my mind. I'd be so pissed. But Lance Armstrong's still my hero.
It's hard.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Evan.
I feel like I understand where you're coming from because I feel like a lot of us feel the same way. Where it's like he won when we were at a certain age where we were so
I wasn't racing him.
excited about the sport.
For us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. And so I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
It's hard to look past the other stuff that he did.
I really do think what he came from and what he did for the sport kind of personifies that struggle as an endurance athlete, I think. And Panatani was the same way. I think they were these really like broken heroes, and they were very fallible in everything. They were just they're an interesting story to cheer for in that sense, and also hate at the same time.
Right.
They were just as interesting to cheer for as they were to hate. And I mean, Panatani was about as Italian as it comes. Like when you talk about Italian cycling history, like Panatani is the most Italian cyclist maybe that ever lived.
And Armstrong was the most Texan.
American. He was the most
not American,
Texan.
Texan.
Yeah, he wasn't even American. He was Texan. But yeah, I think that's why they were they were unapologetically themselves, and that's also.
Here's another question for you. I don't want you to put out anybody's name. I just want a simple yes or no question. Is there anybody here locally who we race against in our respective sports that we have a pretty good idea that person is using something?
I'm going to call you out, Rico. You are messed up, man. You don't go lining up against me. Just kidding. I don't know. I think this is a really tough question because we can suspect that someone is, that's one of our buddies or whatever.
But we're not tested.
So all it is unless a friend of ours has confided in us, and then you have this question of like, do you rat out your buddy? Like that'd be a whole nother question to ask.
Do you say their name on a podcast?
You just Rico. I told you, Rico.
Matt
told you not to take that
Why does it have
stuff.
to be Rico?
I don't know because it's not like someone's name. If
Because
I
I
was
don't
like,
know Rico.
if I was like, if I said Matt, and then because there's so many Matts out there, then someone's
there you
gonna be
go.
like, oh crap, he's talking about me.
Dang it.
Yep, you gotta use an uncommon name.
Sorry, Rico. Yeah, I'm sure we have a Rico listening.
I don't
Evan,
think so.
you run in some circles with some high-level people that have the potential to be using. Is there anybody that you would suspect?
You want to name any names?
Do I? Okay, of like people I've raced so far.
Just in general, yeah.
In general, yes.
It could be at the high amateur level or even the pro level. Is there anybody that you would say that person's probably taken?
Do you know what's funny? I would say before I turned pro, I would say I was probably racing against more people I could point to and say I think that they've been doing something this last year.
Yeah.
At the pro level, I know I've said on this podcast before, like, I think that there's drug problems in triathlon.
Yeah.
I don't think it's in the Ironman world as much. I think it's more in the ITU world where you get these guys who play for their, or supported by their Olympic committees. That's more where I kind of, and just the numbers that are put out in the ITU world. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to not say names. Like, I think if you look at some of these guys at the top of the ITU world right now, there are guys going under 30 off the bike.
Yeah.
I look at that immediately and I'm like,
suspicious.
That is suspicious.
It's hard. It's so hard to say.
You're putting out 400 watts for an hour and then you jump off and run 450.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that just seems otherworldly.
The good news is they're tested, I think, at that level. Like,
I'm not sure if they really are, though.
I agree with you that they're probably not at a lot of those things, but I think like when the Brownlees are winning Olympics and yes, they're breaking 30 minutes on the 10K, I think those guys have to. I like to think that they're tested.
I like to think that too.
They have to be tested when they're getting medals at the Olympics. I can't imagine that they're not.
Right. Yep.
But there's nobody in the Ironman game right now that I've raced that I would look at and be like, that's weird. Like, that's super. No, those guys have been at the top for a while. I know they work their butts off.
Yep.
I think that at least the guys that I'll use, the guys I raced in Boulder, for example, Ben Hoffman's a stand-up guy. You know,
doesn't mean that he's not taking something.
I know, but he's been at the top of the sport for a while. Yep. He's such I would just find it that would be shocking news to me.
Yeah,
shocking news.
I think sometimes that's the case where it's like, but he doesn't have that like, oh, he has, he's been at this level, and then all of a sudden he just spikes up, like that kind of like,
Ben's always been super consistent and just great. So,
Lance, you run in a circle of racers who are starting to hit some age benchmarks, if you will.
Yeah.
A little bit older, might be somebody that, that TUE kind of sounds kind of good, kind of harken back to yesteryear when I used to be pretty dang fast. Anybody that you can think of, again, don't want to know any names because a lot of these guys are our friends, but I mean, is there people that you've ever suspected?
Just sitting here thinking, I can think of probably 4 or 5 guys that are probably all on something. Something.
Gotcha. I would have to agree with that.
Yeah.
When you get out there and you start racing and you're lining up against people, I'm like, good God, that person is super strong, or they just have a certain look to them. So that leads me into my next question for you guys. Would you say that there is a telltale sign besides the fact that they're just performing out of their mind of people who are using? Are there physical attributes that you look for? Are there certain types of mannerisms that you would look for, or
a couple of things here?
Go ahead.
Back in the day, track and field was so bad, and it probably still is. But it was so obvious to me when sprinters were using HGH because they were always like collegiate or post-collegiate and getting braces, and it was just like, come on, guys. Like, we know that you're on a significant, which means you have to be on a significant amount of this drug that's going to change your jawline or whatever it is. And it's just like, it's so obvious. It's like
Ben Johnson.
I mean, well, Marion Jones, all these people, it's like, I can
literally
name,
bone growth
every single
on.
right. It's like all of these people, and they all were just like, yep, we got the braces on and we're winning, all this sprint stuff. And you're just like, okay.
It's like you're 38, you just got braces. And your hat size just increased too.
So are there signs? Yes, at different signs for different things. Yes, for that situation, that was pretty obvious. I think when someone gains a really large amount of size in a short amount of time, and and this is weird for cycling, right? Because we all want to be smaller, but I think that steroids obviously make you gain size, and so it's just hard. Like I don't think people realize how hard it is to gain muscle. Like, to put on a pound of muscle is not easy.
Yeah.
No. It's easy to put on a pound of fat. I can do that. I can show you how to do that real quick.
There's some donuts right here.
Yeah.
I could do that this evening.
Yeah. I mean, it's super easy. I got that covered. But, like, if anything, I'm losing muscle mass, on the daily. But a pound is a lot of muscle. Yeah. And you'll see people gain, if they're on certain things like 15, 20 pounds.
Very dramatic changes in body composition.
Either way, really, I think. Really going either direction, because there are ways, if you see a guy who's dropping weight at terrifying rates and his power's not dropping. I mean, there's, Lance Armstrong has talked about he would take certain doses of cortisol going into races to make sure that he was self-cannibalizing basically to get down to a certain weight, but it was a balance to make sure he was maintaining muscle strength.
Well, and taking the testosterone, in order for you to gain that weight, you have to be on a certain kind of a strength training regimen that's going to, basically play out where like you're all of a sudden your shoulders and your chest and your back and everything else is going to start swelling up. I mean, if you're really just going out and riding your bike and it's your legs, I mean, you could see some hypertrophy in your legs, but I don't think that you're going to all of a sudden just get this massive upper body from not training it that way, other than maybe rocking the bike back and forth a little bit. So I don't, just something there. What about like skin conditions? Have you guys noticed that before?
So I just was like literally just reading this article before I sent it to you guys, and they were just saying like, as long as you don't take a ridiculous amount of certain types of steroids, you're not going to have the back knee, tons of acne problems that you get from steroids.
Oily skin.
I don't know. I'm sure that there's like some people that are, jumping way past the suggested amounts and things like that, right? I mean, I don't think it's as obvious. I would be surprised if we saw that in cycling a whole bunch. I could be wrong. I just don't know.
Yeah. And I don't think this is as much like the 90s where they were still maybe figuring out the dosing on some of this stuff for performance.
I think here it's like a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know. I'm speculating on. I think you would see that kind of stuff in bodybuilding.
Yeah. Somebody who's really trying to put on mass.
Yeah, and they're just using, basically like horse pills.
Yeah, I would look at,
but I have no idea.
So like from a triathlon perspective, I would look at somebody who, and this is the thing with Strava these days, is there are pros out there that, they have their entire training schedule is on Strava. And you can look back and see, okay, this guy's tolerating this is just me from a triathlon perspective, having been somebody who has trained around that 30 hours mark. If I'm seeing somebody at 35, 36 hours and they're putting out like really intense track workouts consistently and they're not having any drop off in training, that's the one time where I would personally look at that and be like, it may not be a physical appearance, but your structured training is reflecting somebody that's taking something that's helping that recovery process.
I have no idea. It's hard. That would be hard to see.
Looking
at training data.
It would be, but I don't know, man. I just look at some of what these ITU guys do at the very top end there, and I'm looking at that and I was like, good God, this guy just put out like 4 intense intervals run sessions. We're not even talking about what they're doing in the pool and on the bike. I'm like, that is what professional runners do.
Yep.
And he is professionally biking and swimming also on top of that. Yeah. There's something either has to break or they're using something. So
it becomes even more evident as they get older. It's like I'm going to be 45 here pretty soon. Mm-hmm. And
oh my gosh,
getting so old, man. I can remember just like in my late 30s and comparing it to today, there is a big difference in terms of how my body recovers and what I can do on a week over week basis.
Yeah.
If I could actually manage to put together a good solid 6-week training block, I'm pretty fatigued at that end of that if I am doing it right. And that's just me putting in 10 to 12 hours. I mean, if I were trying to hit like 18, 20, 25 hours and I was doing that week over week over week, I'd be done. I would be so fatigued. I don't think I could do it without the help of some sort of performance enhancing drug or something to help me with recovery. Yeah. Everybody's physiology and their chemistry is a little bit different, and I'm sure that there's going to be people out there who can sustain a little bit more, maybe go a little bit further in life. But at some point in time, Father Time's going to catch up with you. Mother Nature's going to catch up with you, and they're going to whoop your backside, and you're just not going to be the same person.
Right now, I'm getting my tail kicked. Father Time's putting the hurt. He's putting a smackdown on me so bad right now. He's got. Yep. Anyway.
We should make this even more intense and be like, of the 4 people at this table, who would you suspect the most?
All 3 of you guys.
If you knew you weren't going to get caught.
Well, one of the signs of testosterone use is male pattern baldness.
I convenientally have a hat on, guys.
I got a pretty thick head of hair over here.
Don't look directly at my head.
I don't know why Lance is saying anything over here. He's not looking that much better.
A little thin. Can we thin enough there?
Yeah, it helps you with recovery, and I'm still 14 months out trying to recover, so it ain't me. Sorry.
I was gonna say.
Meanwhile, I'm going swimming after this.
Exactly.
Pretty sure. I know who
weeks
the dope.
ago.
Yep.
That was laying on tarmac, busted up.
We might have to look at that guy.
I know, right?
Yeah. Okay, I'm super naive to all this, and I should have done a lot more research, but I just am curious. What drugs are people taking? We've talked a little bit about HGH. We've talked a little bit about testosterone. Are there certain types of HGH? Are there certain types of testosterone? Are there other performance-enhancing drugs out there? I mean, you've talked about EPO.
Yeah.
I know I've heard of greenies, which is basically amphetamines that they were taking as well.
Yep. That was probably back in the day, I hope.
That was baseball and cycling. Yeah, they were getting
baseball. They used to just have them like in the locker room, right? They would just like pop them before they went out. Yeah.
Adderall.
Yes, that's the big one right now.
I bet people are taking that.
I know people who are taking and racing with that.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely. Is it illegal? I have no idea.
That's a great question. It has to be.
It's legal.
Is it really legal?
Well, I mean,
with the TUE,
probably with the TUE, and it's prescription based, I guarantee.
Just because it's prescription based, you still like anything
because
like
EPO
that.
is technically prescription based too.
I mean,
but,
HGH prescription based, and you have to have a therapeutic exemption, right? So
I don't know if it is or not. Then
Adderall's a pretty intense amphetamine. I would be surprised if.
bet it.
Oh,
it's
interesting.
Yeah, that's
or stimulant.
Yeah.
Stimulant. Yeah.
You've got clenbuterol. I believe that's another like bronchodilator, if I'm not mistaken,
right.
for
That's one
asthmatics.
that a lot of the pro cyclists get busted for.
What's the stuff that Chris Froome got mixed up with?
If I remember right, it was albuterol, but I could be wrong.
Is that
Same class of drug.
asthma,
which is just an asthma thing,
Asthma
right?
thing.
It's just over the recommended dosage for,
I think he was,
for how he could possibly be doing that with a puffer, right?
3 or 4 times over the recommended
Yeah.
amount or the illegal allowed amount for his
Right.
TUE that he has for that.
Salbuterol. My bad.
Salbuterol. Gotcha.
Salbutamol. Yes.
So,
What else are people taking out there?
well, there's with all of these drugs, like we're talking about the specific class, and then there's lots of different types of like brand names that So, and they all might have slight differences to them also, especially with steroids. I mean, there is treasure troves worth of different types of steroids, and they all are slightly different.
This
so.
is why I got into physical therapy and not pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. So I think the answer is like we don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure testosterone too, right? You have creams and injections, and I think there's a couple other ways to do.
Patches.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we don't know. There's just way too many
I can
different
remember
things.
going through in one of my exercise physiology classes that kind of tied over into some kinesiology stuff, talking about strength and conditioning. We did cover steroids, and I remember talking about things, but this was like 24 years ago probably about that many years ago that I had that class, and I can only imagine how much things have changed since then. So I'd be curious to know like what it is that people take and what it is that's helping them for different reasons. So
yeah, there's a surprising one that when I was mentioning earlier, dropping weight for things, diuretics is also I've read about diuretics for NCAA. That was big actually because a lot of our wrestlers at our school would use quite a bit of diuretics.
That's
actually.
scary.
Cycling, running, it would make sense if you're in a drop phase and you want to.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to, it'd be stupid to get down to weight that way. But I'm sure there are kids out there experimenting with that. So
it seems like if you were into this stuff, you would. I mean, I like to think that you would want to like gather the knowledge. Like I find this topic interesting, and so I feel like each time I see some like article where a journalist tries different stuff, I'm always interested in the article because I think it is a very interesting topic, and I'm super, I don't know why, but I find it very interesting when it's like HGH cures your eyesight or cures like and it's like, wow, that's interesting, like that's super cool. And I think if you were really diving into the stuff, like thinking about using it, like you would want to know a lot of details about the different types of options, and maybe certain, the doctors I think that are probably pushing this stuff are kind of like the, what do they call them? Like, anti-aging type doctors.
Anti-aging.
Yeah.
That was a big thing in baseball.
Longevity doctors.
and anti-aging clinics.
And I don't have that much beef with that. I know they get a huge bad rap from a lot of the other physicians in the world, and maybe a lot of that's, rightly so. But like I kind of want to live forever. I'm not going to lie, like, at some
That's why we do this.
Well,
that's why I'm
I don't know
cycling.
about that.
It's one of the reasons why I'm cycling.
We like to compete.
Yeah. Well, I do like to compete.
I would love to live forever. I actually think that some of the intensity that we take our sport, is actually probably working against living forever. Like the amount of exercise that Evan does, probably not healthy.
No, it's his sleep.
It's
a sleep pattern.
for sure.
I mean, it's everything else in there too.
But I do want to live a long time, and I want to live, like a good life. I don't want to just be prescribed things when I'm sick. Like ideally when I'm done with sport, like if there was something that, like vitamins and things like that, that's going to help me stay healthy, like I'm interested. Like I want to read more about it for sure. So it's an interesting topic.
Yep, for sure. Some of the side effects, I think that people need to be educated on, because all we've talked about is like all of like, we'll call it the positive things to come about it. We get to race faster, we get to recover, we get to be stronger and win and all that other stuff. Let's talk about some of the downsides of taking performance enhancing drugs. Anything off the top of your guys' heads?
Male pattern baldness.
Yep.
Shut up, Lance.
On a very serious note, hormonal replacement therapy in women going through menopause, if it's not administered correctly, things like breast cancer, strokes, heart attacks.
Do those go up? Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The
all
risk
this
of that.
stuff is like very tricky and debatable because the studies, you look at the studies and there's issues with each study.
I'm just saying from what your typical if a primary care physician is going to have that discussion with somebody, that's one of the side effects
Things
that they will mention.
Would say like you potentially could have higher
Doesn't mean
cancer.
I would say, because I'm not in that world by any means.
But I also think like when you have a disease like cancer that is a disease where your cells are growing out of control and
you feed it with HGH.
Well, think about
it
HGH.
could proliferate
Exactly.
more.
Testosterone or HGH or steroids.
Well, just
those are all drugs that are helping you grow more frequently.
Tissue.
Right.
Like your cells are going to, potentially
You have undiagnosed cancer, and it just proliferates when you start taking HGH.
Well, we don't know because I don't think that the studies are, completely 100% like this is the case. But I would be highly suspicious.
That's the assumption.
That cancers would be higher. People would have higher risk of cancer.
Now,
and so
going over to any EPOs or red blood cell stimulants, there are different types of EPO gets the big name basically, but there are other routes for red blood cell proliferation.
Guess which company invented the major EPO, like the original EPO, like whatever drug?
Marco Panadoni's dad's company. I don't know.
No, I'll give you a hint.
Pfizer or something like that?
Nope. Good
Johnson
guess.
Johnson?
Anyone have any guesses? Maybe anyone from California have any guesses?
Walmart.
Anyone that has seen the tour of California have any guesses?
Amgen.
There it is. Isn't that funny?
God.
Interesting.
Isn't that funny? I read that and I was like,
cycling. Cycling.
That's not a good sponsor. No, I mean, it's just it is what it is, right?
What's the list of side effects? Jake?
Here's a few. We talked about the women, so we can kind of keep running on that one. A deeper voice.
Yeah.
That's kind of a bummer for a woman. How you doing? There's a few on here I'm not going to list because I don't want to get into that because we've got children who listen to this, but increased body hair. That would be a bummer for a woman.
Or a man who likes to shave his legs for cycling.
Baldness. A woman does not want to lose her hair. Let's get into the guy's side of things. Prominent breasts, which I believe is gynecomastia, which is the development of breast tissue in men.
Yeah.
Mine are just resting on the table here.
Shrunken testes, infertility, and prostate gland enlargement. So those are a couple things there. And that's none of those things are favorable.
Going historically in cycling, when you're talking about any red blood cell growth, so when EPO was originally being used, if it's administered poorly, it can be incredibly dangerous because it increases your hematocrit, which
and your
you can
blood
die.
is thickening, and they think that they've had probably
strokes,
at least 14 cyclists or so that passed away.
Yeah,
basically they're sleeping and their heart rate gets lower, thicker blood, and it doesn't end well. So
and that list was from steroids. It was not talking about the HGH or the EPO. A few other things though: severe acne, increased risk of tendonitis or tendon rupture, not a good thing. And I think that's where if I'm not mistaken, the HGH might assist in that.
Yes.
And there's certain types of steroids that will actually increase the
HGH being the one that's going to over time increase the bone tendon growth, attachment strength. Yeah.
You got liver abnormalities and tumors. You've got increased low density lipoproteins, or your LDLs, or the bad cholesterol. High blood pressure, heart and blood circulation problems, which you guys touched on. Aggressive behaviors with the rage and the violence.
Shut up, Jake.
Psychiatric disorders such as depression. You will get into some drug dependence issues. You have issues with infections and diseases such as HIV or hepatitis.
Do you think that depression just comes from the fact that you're cheating and it's weighing on your conscience? Do you think that was maybe where that symptom come from?
And then you've got inhibited growth and development for teenagers or young kids. So that's there's plenty of reasons there not to do it. I'm just curious as to what's that happy medium. If you are needing it for therapeutic use exemption reasons, and it's just to maintain good balance in your body, and you've got prolonged life expectancies, and you're just trying to keep yourself in balance so that you can last a little bit longer, because we're wearing out our bodies every day that goes by. At what point in time do all these other things start to kick in? And that's a question that I don't know, and that's where you have to ask.
It's a question for a doctor, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's probably the case that the therapeutic exemption should be super rare. I mean, crazy rare, especially for things like HGH and stuff like that. It's like these are things that probably should have been diagnosed when someone was a child and they weren't developing correctly, and it's like they need to be on this drug the rest of their life. So I think we're in a bit of a pharmaceutical age, and it's dangerous.
Gotcha. Yeah, so there's all kinds of other stuff we can go over, like the stimulants and the EPOs and whatnot. Do you guys want to talk about that anymore?
I got to wrap it up.
I think we're going to wrap it up.
Gotcha.
Stimulants, I think the symptoms are pretty self-explanatory.
Gotcha.
Don't do cocaine, kids.
So we'll leave you with that. Start to drop your own conclusions. If you have something that you are curious about or something that you think we missed or we got wrong, jump on our social media.
I think it'd be interesting to see that social media discussion. If people want to drop in Facebook and let us know, that'd be super cool.
Yeah, at Dial Podcast. So, all right, on that note, let's move forward into one last thing and wrap this bad boy up. Lance.
I will most definitely be gone next week. I won't be here.
Shut up, Lance.
You said that last week,
I said
didn't
that
you?
last week.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't believe him.
But I am leaving for Florida tomorrow morning.
Have a safe
the
trip,
Sunshine
dude.
State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And driving there.
Have a safe trip. That'll be, be a lot of time in the car.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of time in the car. So,
Evan, one last thing.
Columbia River Try this upcoming weekend.
Are you going to do it?
No, I am going to run there, watch Cassie race,
Okay.
cheer on, and then run back.
Why not? Why don't you just run in the race and swim in the race and bike in
Because
the
it
race?
costs money for him to do that race, whereas he can get into all these Ironman races for free, which are a different level of, I don't know.
Also, just because I'd be not too happy with myself if I got into race mindset and crashed 1 week out before I jump on a plane to go to Michigan to race. So
So you got Michigan and then you've got
Santa Cruz.
Those are
So
the last 2 biggies.
what was that? 4 weeks left, 2 races, I think.
I wonder who's going to win that race, because it's going to be kind of wide open this
Traverse
year.
City.
No,
Or
I'm talking about
Santa Cruz.
I'm talking about Columbia River.
Oh, Columbia
which
River.
Doesn't matter. It's inside baseball.
No, you're right, because Nate won it last year, right?
Yep, he'll
Nate
be gone.
won't be there.
Yep, you'll be gone. There,
Will Snodgrass be there? Or
I
Snodgrass is
won it
there,
one
hold on.
year. I'm
Yeah.
gone. I mean, I'm nobody.
All the
so it could be really
the two defending
and
champs
it
are
could be
gone. It's an
open.
open crown. Yeah.
It could be open.
Whew.
Could be interesting.
Someone fast will show up.
Yeah.
I'll be there supporting
There you go.
some people. Yeah.
I'll be there, Jake.
Fun.
I'll see you.
Matt, one last thing.
I think last week I posted a video talking about Ironman transition bags, which, again, probably doesn't drive our audience wild, but they should be going and checking out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/imlegrand. Poke around in there. You will find something interesting for sure. That's it.
Cool.
One last thing. Yep.
Yeah, I don't really have much other than we've got another Fog Hat Friday ride coming up this
Sweet.
week, and the theme will be jorts. Wear your jorts.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, we talked about doing some Dayglow t-shirt with that. I think that's just too much. We're just gonna roll with jorts, and you can wear whatever you want on top. So that should be interesting.
Perfect.
So. All right, it was another fun one. So much more to talk about on that topic. Maybe we can jump into some specific things in the future, and that could be interesting. I'm kind of curious, but at the same time scared. So not something that's
tough because you got a whole bunch of guys that don't know anything about
Oh,
drugs in the sport, and we're just talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just throwing out names here.
Yeah.
We could
Please-
probably use a doctor.
Yeah, please let us know if we're wrong. And if you are a medical doctor and you'd like to come on here and set us straight, by all
That'd be
means.
great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for listening, everybody, guys. Good seeing you again. Until next week. Bye for now.